It started with the knocking. Every night, just after midnight, faint rapping echoed from beneath the wooden floor of my bedroom. At first, I thought it was the old house settling, an excuse my mind offered to silence the unease twisting in my stomach. But houses don't knock rhythmically. They creak, groan. This was deliberate. 3 taps. A pause. Then 2 more. Always the same pattern. I live alone in a small farmhouse my grandfather left me. It sits at the edge of a dead field, where nothing has grown for decades. The soil is blackened, as if scorched long ago. The locals avoid the area, whispering superstitions about the sleeping thing buried out there. I used to laugh them off. Not anymore. On the 3rd night, I crouched beside the bed and pressed my ear to the cold wooden floor. I held my breath. Silence. Then, tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap. The sound was clearer, more urgent. I pounded on the floor in response. Hello. I whispered, hating how fragile my voice sounded. Nothing. Just silence. Until I turned off the light. The knocking resumed immediately, louder. That's when the dreams began. Each night, I saw a girl with no eyes standing in the corner of my room. Her skin was pale and torn, mouth sewn shut with rusty wire. She didn't move, just stared with those hollow sockets. I'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, heart hammering. But each time I awoke, I'd find something wrong. First, my lamp was on the floor. Then, my closet door wide open. Then, muddy footprints across the floorboards, leading from under my bed to the hallway. I hadn't left my bed. One night, I stayed up, determined to catch whatever was tormenting me. I sat in the corner of the room, holding a flashlight, staring at the spot where the knocking always came from. Midnight struck. I waited. Nothing. Then, the floor beneath my bed shifted. The boards groaned, and I saw one of them lift slightly, like something was pushing from below. I ran out of the room and didn't return until daylight. The next morning, I pried up the floorboard. Underneath was a narrow crawlspace, dark, damp, and reeking of mold. I lowered a flashlight into the hole. Something caught the beam. A porcelain doll. Cracked. Burned. Its face was melted on one side, the eye sockets black pits. Wrapped around its neck was a frayed red ribbon, stained dark. I reached down and pulled it out. The doll was warm. I heard a whisper behind me. She's waiting. I spun around. No one there. The whisper wasn't in the room. It was inside me. Like a memory I didn't own. I threw the doll into the woods and tried to forget. That night, the knocking came again, but it was no longer under the floor. It was inside the walls. I moved to the living room, too afraid to sleep upstairs. But the sounds followed, scratching inside the chimney, the whimper of a girl echoing through the air vents. Then I found something new. Carved into the wooden beam above the fireplace, in letters I swear hadn't been there before. Let her out. The next day, I called the county office, asking for historical records. I learned that in 1923, the house had belonged to a man named Elijah Crane. A quiet man. A religious man. Who once had a daughter, Clara. She had gone missing at age 10. Never found. Neighbors claimed Elijah said God had spoken to him, told him Clara was unclean, that she must be sealed away beneath sacred wood. He was arrested, but no body was ever found. The house was left abandoned for years, until my grandfather bought it cheap, never knowing its history. I couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, I ripped up more floorboards in the bedroom. Beneath them, deeper than the crawlspace, was a bricked-up shaft. I fetched a sledgehammer and started breaking it apart. Brick by brick, the air grew colder, thicker. Finally, I broke through. The stench was unbearable. Inside the hidden chamber, I found the skeleton of a small child, arms folded over a decayed doll, the same doll I'd thrown into the woods. Except it was back. I stood, trembling, when I heard footsteps behind me. Turning slowly, I saw the eyeless girl. Clara. She opened her sewn lips, flesh ripping, and whispered with a voice like wind through a grave. "You let me out." The house groaned as the walls cracked. The ceiling buckled. I ran, barely escaping before the second floor collapsed into the hidden chamber. Fire spread across the old wood like it had waited a century for oxygen. I watched it burn all night. I didn't call the fire department. Some things deserve to burn. But sometimes, they don't stay buried. It's been 3 weeks. I'm living in a motel now. Yet every night, just after midnight, I hear it again. Tap. 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 Pause. Tap. Tap. And last night, when I went to grab my shoes, I found the doll. Sitting by the door. Smiling. I took it outside. I doused it in lighter fluid and watched it burn until it was a pile of black ash. I waited. Nothing happened. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. Until I woke up to the sound of humming. A child's voice, soft, delicate. Singing a lullaby I didn't recognize. The mirror was fogged up, though there was no shower. On the glass, a handprint, small, smeared with soot. That morning, the receptionist at the motel told me a girl had been knocking on all the doors last night. She described her perfectly: pale, black hair, no eyes. I packed up and drove across 3 states. Rented a cabin in the Rockies. No internet. No phone. And still. Tap. 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 Pause. Tap. Tap. Last night, I dreamt of Clara again. But this time, she spoke with my voice. She told me what happened. How her father sealed her below the floor, chanting that he would cut out the sin before it could grow. She begged for mercy, but no one came. She died calling for help. Now she waits for others to listen. And I did. I let her out. But something came with her. Something older. The knocking. It's not a cry for help anymore. It's a signal. I thought it was over, but tonight I noticed something. The walls are breathing. And the doll is sitting by the bed again, clean this time. New. Its porcelain head turns when I look away. I thought fleeing across the country would save me. But this thing isn't bound by walls or borders. 2 nights ago, I boarded up all the windows in the cabin. I nailed shut every door but one. I slept with a knife under my pillow, and a salt line drawn around the bed like I'd read in some desperate online forum. At exactly 12:03 a.m., the knocking began. Tap. 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 Pause. Tap. Tap. But it didn't come from the walls this time. It came from inside the salt circle. I threw open the flashlight. Nothing there. Just the doll, again. Sitting upright, clean, its ribbons restored. It had something in its hands. Scraps of paper. They were torn pieces of a Bible page. The only legible words, "Suffer not a witch to live." I didn't sleep after that. The next day, I drove into town, desperate to find someone, anyone, who knew about Clara, Elijah Crane, the rituals, the dolls. I ended up at a tiny historical museum. The curator, an old woman named Marlene, knew exactly who I was talking about. Elijah didn't just seal her away, she said. He was part of a covenant, an old sect that believed in binding spirits with blood and fire. He thought Clara was a vessel. Said she'd been chosen by the Hollow Saint. I asked what that was. Marlene just crossed herself and whispered, "It wears children like masks." She showed me an old, dusty journal. In it, drawings of symbols, one matched a carving I'd seen beneath my bed. A spiral within an eye. Another page showed a child with black pits for eyes and stitches in her mouth. Clara. Beneath the drawing, a caption. Sealed by silence. Freed by acknowledgement. Bound no more. I drove back in silence. All the way, I felt like I was being followed. I'd check the mirror and see movement, just a blur, too fast to focus on. At the cabin, the salt circle was gone. Erased. The knife under my pillow had turned to rust. That night, she spoke to me clearly. Not in a dream. Not from the shadows. She sat at the edge of my bed, eyes still hollow, but her mouth open and bleeding. "You said my name," she whispered. That's all I needed. She smiled, but her teeth were jagged, unnatural. I'm not alone anymore. Behind her, shadows gathered. Dozens of children, eyeless, silent. Dolls in their hands. Some missing limbs. Some melted. All of them staring. Then Clara leaned forward, her face close to mine. "It's your turn now." I woke up in a field, barefoot, cold. The cabin was gone. In its place stood a burned foundation, half buried under ash and snow. I walked back to town, but no one remembered me. No one remembered Marlene. The museum was boarded up, closed since 1992, written on a rusted sign. It's like I slipped between layers of reality. Or maybe, she pulled me through. Now I'm back in my grandfather's house, the original place, somehow untouched. The floorboards are still stained. The hole still sealed. Except the knocking is gone. There's only silence. And I've come to realize, I'm not being haunted anymore. I am the haunting. Last night, I watched a family through the window. A young couple had moved in. They laughed. Their daughter danced barefoot on the old wood floors. They haven't heard the knocking yet. But soon, they will. And when they do, I'll be waiting beneath the boards. Just like Clara. Just like the rest of them.